Welcome to the Essentially You podcast. Dr. Carrie Jones, how are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to talk with you again. This is fantastic.
Oh, well, I could not. Girl, I was reading your Instagram post and you were talking about mitochondria, which, woo, you want to get me on a date? I'll tell you what, woman after my own heart. But not just mitochondrial health and what mitochondria does, which I think a lot of people know that they're the energy powerhouses. I call them the diva of the cells as well.
I love that.
They are hormone producers. And one of the hormones that they are a major producer for is cortisol, which is a mamma jamma in the world of our body, one of those big universal hormones. And so what I wanted to talk about is the connection between mitochondrial function and cortisol production, but also there's a lot of nuance in there. There's a lot going on and how these two interact, or how they interact with each other, how the health of one could absolutely cause the health or disease of the other. And so what I want us to first start with, before we get into all the nitty gritty, which I know some people are like, oh my gosh, woo, about to get into it. Other people are like, oh baby.
I know. Science nerds unite.
Exactly. I would love for you to just quickly share kind of that defining moment for you, Carrie, when you knew that you wanted to study hormones, you wanted to really understand the body, especially around these chemical messengers.
So I have known since I was a little girl that I wanted to be in women's health. I wanted to be a women's health doctor. And honestly, once I got into naturopathic medical school, hormones was what I was doing, but really what I was realizing is I was having so many aha moments for me and my health. And as I was telling my non-medical friends, like, this is what's happening. This is what it means in your period. This is what it means with cramps and tender breasts or mood swings or fertility or whatever. Everyone's like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. It's like, nobody told me that. I didn't learn that in high school. I didn't learn that in sex ed. My mom never told me. I didn't know. Why don't we know? I'm like, that's a really good question. Why don't you know? And so that really became my focus, like education and helping meet women where they're at and just explaining, because I feel like women, a lot of women, I mean, if they knew the why behind it, if they're like, oh, that's why, and if I switch that one thing, my cramps will get better. Like, if I do this thing, maybe my breast tenderness will improve. I'm like, yes, and here's why. And then that sort of became my driving passion when it came to figuring all of this out.
And I agree with you. I think once women understand the why, because let's be honest, when you look out, you see runners or you see people working out outside, it's women, like
Yeah.
When you see people running health of the household, making sure everyone's taking their supplements, making sure vegetables are on the table, it's women. And so absolutely true that once we understand what is going on with our bodies, we definitely take initiative, we take action based on that information. But again, most of us are left in the dark, and I know people are constantly getting their mind blown when they're learning kind of the ins and outs of what's going on with our hormones. Now, particularly one of the kind of hormone pathways that we hear a little bit about that probably tends to be a bit confusing is understanding the hypothalamic pituitary axis and understanding, like, here, I know this year in particular, a lot of periods are completely whacked out. A lot of hormones are completely whacked out. Maybe people are going down the wrong estrogen pathway. Progesterone is taking a hit. Like, we're seeing a lot of this, and lots of correlation to lifestyle, to fear, to stress. I would say, if I were to ask if women could chime in right this second as they're listening to us, and I would say, has this year felt busier than previous years? Have you felt the busiest? I would say everyone would raise their hand up and say, oh yeah, I'm
absolutely,
the hats and
for sure.
Extra hats. And then someone gave me some more hats. And so
I don't want these hats, but yet I have them. I never wanted them first. They don't fit me well, but here we go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So talk to me about stress is definitely existing. What's going on? How is it impacting the body? How is this process working in the body?
Absolutely. So I tell women all the time, whether you're looking to get pregnant or not, I am not looking to get pregnant. However, it doesn't matter. As a woman, my body does the same scans, the same, top to bottom look. And so the body in a female is always judging, is it safe enough for you to have a healthy menstrual cycle and to potentially, if you wanted to, get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And so stress, our diet, our exercise, travel when we used to be able to, everything from our sleep habits to our mood, all of this stuff affects how our cycles work. And now in 2020, what you said is spot on. You nailed it. Women are like, my cycles are shorter. My cycles are longer. I don't ovulate. My PMS is worse. All these symptoms are magnified. What's going on? So what's happening is the body is scanning and going, oh, girl, no way. We are not having it this month. And so
danger.
Yep, 100%. And so it affects ovulation, therefore it affects progesterone, and progesterone is our calming hormone. So we lose out on calming and sleep, good sleep quality. It affects our cycle length. It affects, when we bleed, how long we bleed, how much we bleed. And that's what it affects our hair, right? Hair is not a priority. We don't need hair in stranger danger. And so a lot of women are like, why is my hair falling out so much? I'm like, I know.
Energy. It affects your energy.
So much. And so this is what's happening to women because the bodies, and it's not to say that it's not happening to men. It's just different. Like they don't get this, like, we're the protector of the womb. And so we don't have to have that gatekeeper to say, ooh, you seem maxed out this month. You are homeschooling, you are running a business, you are running a household, and you are trying to keep it all together and not sleeping that well. Probably not a good month to have normal hormones. So we don't get you pregnant. Even if you don't want to get pregnant, the brain doesn't register that. That's not what it's preserved fertility just in case. And so that's what's happening to women this month. And I tell women, I'm like, look, it's not your fault. It's, it's the byproduct of this ridiculous year. That's what's happening. And your body is literally trying to protect you. It is not trying to work against you. It is not trying to screw you over. It is not trying to be evil. It is literally trying to protect you because the outside world, just like you said, is stranger danger.
So 100% true. And I'm so grateful. I love the way that you put that. Like, whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, your body biologically is always gauging whether your body's viable. Like, if everything, if all you would check, we're checking all the boxes to make sure everything's working properly. And a lot of different factors, and especially external factors, can throw all of that off. And unfortunately, it doesn't take a lot to do that.
For some women, who are, definitely there are women who are like, oh, I'm sensitive to everything. I react to everything. And in these little shifts in stress and sleep or my diet or, weight gain, the COVID-19 gain, it affects them. It affects their hormones.
100%. Yep. So now that we have the landscape of kind of what's going on, why we're experiencing some of these symptoms, and kind of what's happening in the landscape of our body, especially when our stress response system, it continues to get triggered over and over and over again. Whether you're in a real stressed situation or not, it doesn't have to be a real stressful situation. It can just be a perceived situation.
Yep. Busy, just like you said. There's plenty of women. I'm sure we have plenty of women friends that are like, I'm not threatened, like lots of women are like, my health is good. I have my job, or my family is safe, but they're so busy. They got so much added onto their plate this year. And that busyness is the perceived stress. The body is like, way too many hats to balance right now. Why would we give you a normal cycle? Why would we maybe, be okay with fertility right now?
Absolutely. Now let's I want to just tie in cortisol really quickly into the mix. How this can not only kind of affect our normal rhythms, circadian rhythms, our reproductive rhythms, our cycle, but then also how it can be affecting our energy supply, or how our energy supply could be impacting cortisol production. So I know we've got a lot of unpeeled.
A lot of things to go over. Well, so cortisol is made in our adrenal glands, and we often think of it as our stress hormone, but honestly, the number one job of cortisol, number one, is blood sugar management.
Yes.
It's a glucose manager. And so I tell women, if you can't get your glucose balanced, you will never get your cortisol balanced, and vice versa. If you can never get your stress, your cortisol under control, or your stress management under control, your sleep rhythms, things like that, then you're going to potentially struggle long-term with glucose management. So that's its actual number one role. But cortisol does a lot. It does help us with stress. It lowers inflammation. It helps keep us alert and have energy, especially in the morning. it helps reduce our risk for autoimmunity. Cortisol does a lot. Now, it like Goldilocks, like too much is a problem and too little is a problem. We want it just right, but it follows a rhythm. So cortisol is like the sun, whereas melatonin is like the moon. So cortisol should be up in the morning to get you going, make you nice and alert, deal with your blood sugar, lower your inflammation, get you ready for the day. And then gradually it falls so that you can fall asleep at night. And that's when your melatonin comes out. So we do like, and we do need cortisol, right? But if you have, let's go that like the too much Goldilocks, if the bowl is too big and you have too much cortisol, then that's where you get into just what you said, that stranger danger. So you have this constant barrage attack in the brain of like, things are happening, stress is happening, there's a lot of cortisol, there's a lot of inflammation, there's blood sugar issues, and now the brain has to deal with it. And the way that it deals with it is it signals downstream to your other glands, your thyroid gland, your ovaries, right? Like other glands to be like, sorry, I can't really deal with you effectively right now. I have to put all my focus on the stress that's happening. So your thyroid may not work as well as it should, and your ovaries may not work as well as it should, because I have to be over here helping over cortisol, because like there could be a tiger, or there could be a bear, or there could be, like all sorts of really scary things, and that's more important. And so that's
and glucose regulation is more important too. Like we're going to value, survival over anything, always. I would say it's the number one core mode of operation in the body. But then also we think about metabolism and cellular metabolism, and cortisol is regulating, blood glucose levels, or helping to regulate insulin. Metabolism is on the docket first and foremost too.
Yeah. And you think about all these women who they love to run, right? They like to spin. They like their bikes. They're on their Pelotons because they can't go to the gym. And as a result, when their stress is heightened, when the body thinks they're constantly running from a tiger, running from a bear, and then you are actually running or spinning, you could potentially make yourself worse, especially if you're not handling your stress very well. So I have a lot of women that write me and say, I spin for an hour every single day, and I'm noticing I'm actually gaining weight, and I'm not handling stress as well, and I'm not sleeping that well, and my cycles are really kind of weird, and my symptoms kind of suck. Do you think it could be related? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Or women who are like, I'm running, running is my passion. I love to run. I run 5 to 10 miles, whatever. But I'm noticing now that when I run, I feel worse, and I'm getting injured, and I'm not recovering, and I'm hungry all the time, and I've actually gained weight instead of lost weight. And I'm like, I know, because you're already in fight or flight. Thank you, 2020. And then you literally are running. And so the body doesn't know run from enemy or run because that's your mode of self-care, your mode of stress release. So I'm like, we've got to dial it back. We have to think of other exercise methods. We have to work on, self-care and, all the stuff that you talk about. And so that's been really surprising for a lot of women this year around cortisol. When it's too high, when we're in the high end of Goldilocks.
Yeah, when you're already in that state, then you're driving it with excess cardio. And not only will you see, a deregulation of cortisol, but you're going to see a deregulation of blood sugar levels. That's the thing about stress, especially exercise-driven stress, is you're going to see, you would think that level of exercise would actually help to support glycolysis and insulin regulation, but it actually can make it worse.
Right. Yeah. And women notice it. They're probably writing you, they're writing me. They're like, what the heck? Like, this used to work and it's not working.
It's not working anymore.
This year. It's not working this year. I'm like, I know.
I'm just having this conversation with my mama because she loves to run, but her hemoglobin A1C was high. And I was like, we've got to start looking at resistance training. We've got to start looking at weight training. We need those muscles. Stop up all that glucose, because right now that's not happening. And in my pregnancy, as I'm approaching 33 weeks right now, that's the only thing I'm doing is just lifting weights.
Yeah.
No gestational diabetes for this 41-year-old,
yes.
Let me tell you.
Yes. And I was listening to a podcast by Mike Mutzel, and he was presenting the studies of how our legs, our leg muscles, our booty, our thighs, our legs, the leaner and stronger, and the more that we have of them, the less likely we are to develop diabetes, pre-diabetes, have insulin resistance. So he's like, do not forget about leg day. Do not forget about that booty. Use weights, do resistance training, because that will really, really help. Just like you said, sop up the glucose, sop up the sugar, and pull it into the muscle to essentially get burned. And that's what we want, especially right now.
Yeah, once it's in the muscle, it ain't going nowhere. It's not getting released, but if it's in the liver, that's the thing. And so I think the critical thing, especially if women are doing over cardio, especially I'm looking at my Peloton right now, which is actually gathering dust because I'm doing like 10-minute bouts, because really where I should be focusing my efforts is building that muscle. And if I've got my little 20-minute pregnancy workout, that's going to be the thing that I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, we've been told cardio, but most of us are so fried that it's actually causing major issues. And I've experienced that. I cannot tell you, where I would get done with I would do Orange Theory. Orange Theory is half cardio, and then the other half is, let's be honest, it's pretty much cardio too. And I would come out of these classes, and the rest of my day, I was complete toast. I was just flatlined. And I was like, okay, I know what's going on. I'm just taking that stress to the next level.
And it frustrates women because it maybe used to work. Right? Like they'll be like, well, in 2019, I could do this, or 6 months ago, I could do this. I don't understand what changed. And I'm like, well, it's all the physiologic of stress that has changed. It's the cortisol with the glucose, with the insulin that has changed lately. And as a result, you got to shift with it. You have to shift with it in the type of exercise that you do and how we manage stress. Otherwise, you'll end up like the too low Goldilocks. You'll have not enough cortisol, and then you say,
let's go into the So we had the big bowl,
right?
Now we got a small bowl.
Now you have a way too small bowl. Yeah. So what can happen? So two things can happen. One is we have what's called a negative feedback loop. So high cortisol over time attacks the brain. Like, I'm stressed. And the brain's like, okay, fine. This is enough. We're going to cut it. And so it slows the signal down, and we gradually make less cortisol. It doesn't go to zero. There's an autoimmune condition called Addison's, but just for the normal average person who doesn't have that. So our cortisol maybe used to be high a couple months ago, and now it's hedging lower. And so we're losing that signal to make it. But the other thing that can happen is that we lose the ability to make it effectively in our mitochondria, which is what we said in the beginning. So our mitochondria, we all learned in high school, is our cellular powerhouses of our cell. They literally make the energy. They make the ATP. But also in your mitochondria, because they multitask like crazy, they're the first and last step to cortisol production. So you have a step, for the science nerds out there, you have this thing called a star protein, and star binds to cholesterol and converts into something called pregnenolone. Then it leaves the mitochondria and enters into your endoplasmic reticulum. Again, something you probably learned about in high school and totally forgot about. Then in the endoplasmic reticulum, it turns into something else and comes back into the mitochondria, becomes cortisol, and goes out in circulation. So what I say all the time is cortisol production starts and ends in the mitochondria. So if you don't have healthy mitochondria, you're going to struggle to make cortisol. You're going to have low cortisol, which often is low energy, right? Low energy, low motivation, feeling blah, feeling burnt out, feeling so tired, feeling tough to recover, struggling with your blood sugar, struggling with so many things just because you don't have a healthy amount, a normal amount of cortisol in your body.
So we've got two things going on here with the smaller bowl. One, you've got cortisol yelling at the brain, stranger danger, just constantly bombarding the brain with messages. And the brain's like, enough is enough. We're shutting production.
It's like an irritated mom, right?
Yeah,
and then it's just like, stop it.
Nope, I'm taking that away from you. And so we know that actually lowered cortisol is really a stopgap because the body's trying to protect itself.
Yes.
It's saying, hey, this whole stress situation, it's affecting everything, and we got to slow this down. You've been crying wolf way too long. But then at the same time, most likely due to stress and other factors, mitochondria could be also getting damaged, or could decide that they need to hibernate. They're like, listen, this has gotten really dangerous. I don't know what's going on out there in the body, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shut down, hibernate for a little while. Let me know when this COVID thing goes away.
Right. Text me when you're done.
Yeah, and then they stop doing their which is a crazy amount of jobs.
Yeah.
It's like the magnesium of inside the cell.
Yeah.
They stop playing a role in the beginning and the ending of cortisol production.
Yeah.
So we've got two different, one, the production of cortisol could be compromised, and also two, we may just be having to shut it down a little bit.
Right.
And we feel that too.
Absolutely. And even with the mitochondria, because, and I'm sure people ask you, they ask me, like, what can I take, right? What can I take for mitochondria? Is there a magic supplement? And I say to women all the time, I swear, I promise, if I had a magic supplement,
oh my gosh,
I would just give it to you. I would
give it to everybody.
Like Oprah, I would be like, you get the magic supplement and I would put it in the water. I would give it to everyone because balanced, healthy women like make the world go round. So, I mean, literally. So I don't have a magic supplement.
Happy mitochondria equals happy women.
Right, exactly. And so I tell people there's a lot of things that affect the mitochondria. For example, the mitochondria don't like chemicals.
No.
They don't like plastics. They don't like fragrance. They don't like fake. They don't like
nail polish.
Glyphosate. They don't like, exactly. Like they don't like chemicals because they're fragile and they can die easily. So the more you can read ingredients, the more you can transform what you put on your body, what you put in your body, what you clean your house with, what you use in your hobbies, what your air filter in your house, like the water filter in your water, the more you can do that, the happier your mitochondria are. The second biggest thing your mitochondria really like is exercise. Your mitochondria like movement. So going back to the weights and the resistance training, your mitochondria do really like that. Now, you don't have to be like an all-out gym rat, but even just, just 20 minutes 3-4 days a week to get going, can really make a big difference. Mm-hmm. Your mitochondria really like oxygen. Oxygen, which you think, well, yeah, I'm breathing right now, Carrie, like it's not, I'm a human. Yes, except I read this really interesting quote that said forward head posture. So when you look down at your phone, or your computer all day long, cuts your oxygen by about 30% up to your brain. So if you're listening to this and you're looking down, pull your shoulders down, pull your chin back, and be really cognizant of your posture. And then be cognizant if you snore at night, if you're a mouth breather, if you have sleep apnea. All of this affects oxygenation. If you're anemic, iron and oxygen and mitochondria they all go together. And so even though I know you breathe because you're human and you're alive, like a dip in oxygen, a decrease in our ability to get regular quality oxygen in, so to speak, can really affect the mitochondria. Other helpful things, cold. Your mitochondria like cold. So end your showers in cold water. Do 30 seconds of cold at the end. Wash your face in cold water. If you are brave, do cold plunges. Jump in a tub, in a pool, in a lake, in a river, and get some cold exposure here and there. And then your mitochondria really like red. It likes red light. It likes a near infrared. So it likes red and near infrared. So some people, it's sunlight. Some people, because sunlight's full spectrum, some people actually have red light machines. They went and bought some sort of light that is red or near infrared light in it, and it's specifically for mitochondria. And these are simple things like, oh, you know what? I can be very aware of my posture. That's free. I can end my shower in cold water. That's free, right? Like I can look at chemicals and I can like just make some swaps. I'm paying for it anyway. I might as well just swap to the better version. So it doesn't have to be really huge, expensive, and complicated. It can be pretty straightforward and easy, which is what I love about the mitochondria.
I think really what it comes down to is consistency.
Yes.
It's about daily. And I know that they do well. They really do appreciate having great circadian rhythms.
Yes.
They do not like blue light at night.
Yes.
They like the sunlight. They love to be out in nature, but they want you to shut it down.
Yeah.
Before going a while before going to bed.
And how many people don't, right? We call it the entrepreneur or the mom pattern. So you put the kids down and then it's your time. It's your second wind. You've got that space to now you can answer emails, you can pay bills, you're texting, you're on social media, you're watching you're finishing that show on your bright TV or your bright computer. And then all that blue light, like you said, is the brain goes, oh, blue light. Well, then I guess we're not going to bed if it's blue light, because blue's day is versus dim or red is more for the nighttime. And so it can trick your brain into thinking you should stay up. And so now you can't fall asleep as fast as you would like to, or you wake up often, and then that throws off your whole rhythm. And then the whole cycle starts over the next day.
Exactly. Yeah, no. And then it just continues to get disrupted depending on what you've got going on.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of near infrared, and I could be wrong on this, are saunas beneficial for mitochondria? I thought hot and cold, it can be stressors for them, but I wasn't sure.
Hot and cold are really good stress. When we say stress, we mean like growth stress.
I
like
know we've been talking about other stress.
Yeah.
We're talking now about ways to stress the mitochondria love to be stressed, but in good ways.
Yes, makes them resilient. Like, right, what doesn't kill you makes you tougher. So a little bit of hot and cold, and they're like, I can survive this. Watch me. And then that's what we mean. And then so near infrared. So if you have a sauna that has near infrared, but you have to be close to it. That's the thing. Okay. So near infrared penetrates, I think, if I remember correctly, up to about 2 inches. And so what I tell people, if you're sitting in your sauna and you're kicked back here and all your lights are way up there, then you're probably not going to get that near infrared effect. If you do kind of have to be up by that near infrared, I believe it's like within 6 inches for it to have an effect, to penetrate, which is what we're going for.
Perfect. Okay, guys, wanted to clear the air for those who are wondering if heat could help as well. And then I know that mitochondria love nature.
Yes, grounding, right? Grounding in oceans and rivers and streams and trees. And again, right, it's oxygenation, no chemicals, it's rhythm, like that's what nature's doing. So give the mitochondria what they want.
Yeah. Talk about Goldilocks. It's really that sweet spot. Okay. So there's no magic mitochondria unicorn pill out there.
There's no pill. There are like cofactors.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some cofactors, just about and clearly mitochondria don't like junk food.
They do not like junk food.
The sugar makes it very sluggish. So just a heads up, if you're wondering if mitochondria loved processed food, it's a hell no.
As if we had to say it, but just in case. Yes. So there are definite cofactors for the mitochondria. A big one most everyone's probably familiar with is CoQ10, coenzyme Q10. That is a big cofactor for making your ATP. It's used and shuttled. And actually red light is part of that process too, believe it or not. And so CoQ10 can be helpful. And for some people, they're on statin medications for cholesterol. And it's been shown that the statin medications do lower and affect your CoQ10, and your mitochondria can actually be toxic to your mitochondria, which is why a lot of healthcare practitioners, or maybe if you're on a statin medication and you read your handout the pharmacist gives you, it will often say to consider including a CoQ10. But even if you're not on statins, CoQ10 is a powerful antioxidant and helpful for the mitochondria. Another helpful one that we just pick sort of my top two really is a type of vitamin B12 called adenylyl B12. So it's an A. So everyone's familiar with methyl B12. Everyone knows, I take methyl B12 because I have MTHFR or whatever. It's in my multivitamin, it's in my prenatal. But the A version, adenylyl B12, is actually the preferred form of B12 that goes into what we call the Krebs cycle in the mitochondria. So when it comes to energy, while methyl is great for methylation, for part of detoxification, the adenylyl is the mitochondrial support. So energy production, hormone production, things like that. You can take both. I have people that say, well, my B12 mix has both in it. Totally fine. That's okay. They're water soluble. So I like adenylyl for more mitochondrial energy support.
And I was thinking also alpha lipoic acid. I don't know if that's on your cofactor
It
list.
is. I have a whole, so it's alpha lipoic acid, L-carnitine, manganese, iron. So again, those of you who are low iron deficient, iron anemic, that'll affect your mitochondria. Yeah, even things like curcumin can help the mitochondria. Turmeric, right? Turmeric can help the mitochondria. Resveratrol can help the mitochondria. Selenium, copper. Copper is important for the mitochondria. And so, there are definitely a lot of sort of mitochondrial supportive nutrients. Some just get more fame, more write-ups than others. Yeah,
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And clearly I know that there are mitochondrial supplements, but really just be focusing on kind of getting those direct nutrients.
And just be careful. I hate when women just run out and take iron. I hate when women just run out and take copper. And I'm like, ooh, you can overdose on those things and it can be problematic. And so you want to be really careful with just randomly going online or to your store and buying stuff.
Well, I'm grateful that you mentioned breath, because I think a lot of us know that we're not breathing super well.
Yeah. And especially when we get stressed, we breathe in our upper chest, right? Yeah. And we forget to do deep breath. Yes. Yeah.
So definitely breath, just 30 seconds, 60 seconds on the hour of taking some deep belly breaths. Not only will it help reduce stress levels, but also help to get really good oxygen to the body, to the mitochondria. If you want to make ATP, you got to have it. I think sometimes we don't realize that the purpose of the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system is literally to get oxygen to the mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
Like those systems were created only to get, well, predominantly to get oxygen to our mitochondria.
That's how important it is. That's how important it is. And in the cardiovascular system is our circulation. And I remind people that's how your hormones drive around, right? Like you think of your highway or your, like the streets in your neighborhood and, you know, the main highways through the United States, like that's literally what your arterial system, your arteries, your capillaries, like the big ones, the little ones, like that's where your hormones and all your nutrients and everything, that's how they drive around. So if you have tight muscles, you know, joints out, you're shrugging your shoulders and you're using your shoulders as earrings, you know, and your head's bent forward, you're going to lose or diminish the flow from the brain up and down. You're going to diminish, you know, healthy oxygenation, and it's going to affect hormones. And so I just, you know, remind people, if, you know, maybe get some body work, maybe see a chiropractor, maybe get some acupuncture, maybe, you know, do some foam rolling on your own, maybe get some lymphatic movement happening. The more movement you've got in your body, things can just drive around easier and it won't be a clogged up street.
So true. So true. I so appreciate that little, again, and that consistency. I consistently get tuned up, consistently stretch and roll and breathe, you know, roll the foam roller so that your body, I mean, movement is life. And you're absolutely right when it comes to chemical messengers and nutrients. They've got to move through the circulatory system to get where they need to go. And there's a lot of cells to get to.
That's the truth. It's like Santa, right? Delivering presents all over the world. It's
a lot. 24/7, no break. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we've painted the picture for another big reason why mitochondria are so critical, right? One of the most critical hormones in the body, cortisol. And if we don't have enough mitochondria, and this was a stat that I was interviewing Ari Whitten a couple of days ago, and it's all we talk about. I'm like, the only thing we talk about, we only talk about mitochondria.
Love it.
And he said there was a research article, and I can't quote exactly what journal it was, but that between the ages of 25 and 40, we drop about 40% of our mitochondria reserve.
I would believe it. And I would imagine, and actually it might have been Ari who said it a while ago, you know, between 25 and 40, think about it. Like a lot of people are like getting a job and they're becoming more sedentary and they're like transitioning into a real adulthood, you know, like their diets are shifting and their stress is getting bigger. They've got more bills. They're, you know, all the things that kind of affect our mitochondria are really kind of happening to us, men and women, in that age range. And so we go from young and active and moving and, you know, sort of robust into big girls and big boys who sit at a desk and, you know, don't eat like we used to. We don't move like we used to. And I get the sun like we used to. And that really affects us.
It's so true. And then he said by age 60, we lose another quarter.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, and I was like, no wonder we're all feeling so tired. No wonder we're barely getting by. You talked about lack of motivation, right? You just, like, it starts to add up. And if you don't have the energy, you know, I ask women all the time, you know, if I had a magic wand or I had Aladdin's lamp, and in the next 30 days, you could have, you know, health-wise, you could have whatever you wanted, what would that be? And I would say 98% of the women that I'm surveying at any given time is always more energy. Where can I get more energy?
Yeah.
So now that we know that it's tied to mitochondrial health, and I'm hoping people are they're connecting the dots all around here. Can we test? How can we know? I mean, yes, we should just assume our mitochondria needs a little bit of help all the time. I think that's a great assumption. Like whatever you can do to support your mitochondria, it's only going to work in your favor. And the more consistent you can be about leveling up on your mitochondria, the more favorable it's going to be for you in terms of longevity. But is there a way, if we really wanted to know, we're feeling pretty chronically fatigued, we're really hitting the ground, to test what's going on with our mitochondrial health?
So with like directly testing mitochondrial health, there's no like, take this test and I can tell you like, yes, you're abundant, or, you know, no, you have no mitochondrial health.
Right.
So what we have to do, unfortunately, is like test the markers around it. So we can test some of those Krebs cycle markers, and we can test cortisol. We can look and see how much cortisol you're producing, how much is free. We can look at your actual hormones, because your progesterone, your estrogen, your testosterone, it does start in the mitochondria. It finishes in the endoplasmic reticulum, but it starts in the mitochondria. So if you're a woman and you're like, man, I really struggle with progesterone, it's possible your mitochondria in those cells that make progesterone, your lutein cells, just aren't great. And therefore you're not making progesterone. And we can test that. We can test progesterone. And then we take a lot of symptoms into account because we know what, sort of sick, unhealthy mitochondria lead to feeling sort of sick, unhealthy, and tired. And so that's how we look at mitochondria.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's so critical for us as women to really understand what's going on with our hormones across the board.
Yeah.
Seeing how they're interacting, seeing what's going on with the pathways. On the show, I talk about the Dutch test all the time. I talk about me using the Dutch test all the time. And again, it's giving us kind of a broader picture as to what is going on inside of the body. Yeah. And if our mitochondria are so intimately involved in hormone production, you're absolutely right. We can get a sense of things. If things are hitting the fan within our hormones, we probably know they're hitting the fan with our mitochondria too.
Absolutely. And even on the Dutch test, we look at that B12 marker, that methylmalonic acid, which is an indirect marker for the adenosyl B12. So not only can I go, your cortisol is really low, but you also struggle to use or have or absorb or something, this B12 of the mitochondria. So let's figure that out too.
I love that. Okay, so I feel like we've wrapped this up in a perfect little bow. We have some lifestyle recommendations that we can dive into. We kind of know what to be looking out for when we start to feel that burnout. We start to maybe feel like our hormones are on the fritz. But then if we want to really, really, really know what's going on, I always love this, Oprah says, know your numbers.
Yeah.
There's no better way to really know your numbers than with a Dutch test. How can we get that set up? How can we order that? I know you've got maybe you've got a discount for us today. I don't know.
I absolutely, we can do a discount. So I'll tell you first, if you go to the website, which is dutchtest.com. Now let me clarify, Dutch is an acronym. We're not a Dutch company. We don't test to make sure you have Dutch heritage. It stands for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. So it is, you basically urinate on these little filter papers and, let them dry and mail it back. And that's where the name come from. So it's dutchtest.com. We offer the tests that look at all the cortisol like we talked about, plus all the hormones, progesterone and estrogen, where estrogen's going, estrogen detoxification, testosterone, where testosterone's going, that B12 marker I talked about, melatonin. Since we talked about melatonin, all of that you can order directly on the Dutch test. And then we have a coupon code that you guys can, when you order what's called a Dutch Complete or a Dutch Plus, if you enter in on checkout, essentially 50, then you'll get $50 off one of those two tests.
Perfect. And I have a little code Dutch 50. Does it matter?
It was a Dutch 50. I thought it was essentially. So that's my fault. Either code will work.
I will have the code that I've got. And I will put it in the show notes so everyone has it. I know I talk about this all the time. The other thing, and I know that you pretty much articulated that, but this is an at-home test, which makes it really incredible. And the instructions are very, very clear. You can always go to dutchtest.com to look at all that stuff as well, the instructions to make sure that you're doing it appropriately. And then Dr. Carrie Jones, where can we find you? Because girl, you are breaking it down. Your word in terms of educating us.
I hang out and live on Instagram. That's probably my favorite. So I'm at dr.carriejones. And then I'm the medical director for Dutch Test. So I'm like all podcasts, including this one, are housed on the Dutch Test website for free. All our videos are up there for free that everyone can watch, listen, and learn.
Thank you so much for this, to me, a very yummy conversation. I'm so happy to have you on and for breaking it down for us, especially during a time where I know a lot of us are wondering what is going on with our bodies. We don't really understand. And you really just kind of put it all together for us. And then I love the way in which that we can start to make simple changes every single day inside of our homes.
Yes.
A lot of us are spending a lot of time in still.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I just feel so honored being invited on and love seeing your face. And just thank you.
Thank you, my dear. See you soon.